Kicking off our list, we have Claude Monet in 5th place. Yep, the famed artist himself. If you're not familiar with his work, I'd recommend looking up Impression Sunrise, which is the painting that gave the name to the French Impressionism art movement, or his Water Lily series. Most of his work is made up of stunning landscapes, but I think Woman with a Parasol is my personal favorite of his. But you all came here for a ghosty moment, not for me to wax poetic about art, so let's hop into it. In 2015, the Cleveland Museum of Art was installing a new temporary exhibit from the Royal Academy of Arts in London titled Painting the Modern Garden, Monet to Matisse. The director of architecture was taking photographs to make sure everything looked, according to plan, when she noticed a figure showing up on an empty balcony. The photo in question shows a man with a long white beard, sporting a hat like one Monet was fond of wearing, and looking very much like the artist who was fond of painting his gardens at Giverny. Oh, forgot to mention, Monet was a very passionate horticulturalist on top of being a fantastic painter. The public communications associate who made a public statement on the photograph, Kelly Notaro, has claimed time and time again that the photo is not a hoax, not retouched in any way, and that many more sightings of Monet have been reported since by guests visiting the exhibit. The museum is home to other ghosties as well, with stories told of a little boy running through the gallery dressed in fashions from 1916 and a man in gray staring at the portrait of Jean Gabriel before disappearing into it. Night guards have reported their flashlights flickering on and off in the West Wing, and there's a mirror where visitors report seeing a man standing, but when they turn around, no one's there. Fascinating to me that Monet chose a small museum in Cleveland to appear in, and not the museum in Paris that's, dedicated to only his art. Maybe he felt cozy amongst all the other ghosts. Or perhaps he's traveling the world to make sure his art is safe? Let me know in the comments what you think. In 4th place, we have the Grey Lady of Hampton Court Palace. I guess I should probably introduce her formally to begin with, Dame Sybil Penn. She was a servant at Hampton Court to 4 Tudor monarchs, being the nurse of Prince Edward and also Elizabeth I, nursing her through smallpox before succumbing to it herself in 1562. Sightings of her ghost began being reported in 1829, when the church of the palace was rebuilt and her tomb was moved. I'd probably be ticked as well if I had been resting for that long and then was disturbed. I'm pretty cranky as a person if you wake me up from a deep sleep. Trust me. Once upon a time, I accidentally roared at a friend who was trying to wake me up. Not my finest moment. Anywho, soon after being so rudely disturbed from her grave, strange noises of a person working a spinning wheel were heard through a wall at Hampton Court, which led to the discovery of a previously unknown chamber containing an antique spinning wheel. My inner fairy tale nerd is screaming right now about Charles Perrault. Don't mind me. The photograph we're specifically discussing today was taken in 2015 by Holly Hampshire, age 12, who thought she was taking, a fairly routine picture of her cousin Brooke McGee, also 12, during a day out at the 16th century home while in the King's apartments. Just gotta capture those selfies. The girls didn't realize what they had encountered at the time and only made the discovery when looking through their photos a day later. Okay, now before anyone calls bull on this, it's pretty dang realistic. I know I still haven't looked through every photo I took on my most recent vacation, and those photos are almost a week old now. The photograph shows a tall woman with dark flowing hair, cloaked in a full-length black and gray gown. This is the only time someone has been able to successfully capture her on camera. She's been spotted many times over the years. Just don't confuse her with any of Henry VIII's wives, since they're also quite fond of haunting the place on a regular basis, with Jane Seymour and Catherine Howard being the most commonly spotted. Jane can be found on the Silver Stick Stairs, which once led to the room where she met her unfortunate end after giving birth to the perfect heir, while wild child Catherine can be heard screaming through the haunted gallery, where it's believed that she broke free of her guards after her initial arrest in a failed attempt to reach her husband to plead for her life. Hey, maybe the Now Museum should play host to a touring cast of 6 to see what'll happen. I'd be willing to fly out for that. In 3rd place, we have the Brown Lady. I swear this isn't going to turn into a list of spooky ladies identified by the color of their gowns. I promise! According to legend, the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall is the ghost of Dorothy Walpole, the sister of Robert Walpole, who is generally regarded as the first Prime Minister of Great Britain. She was the second wife of Charles Townshend, who was notorious for his violent temper. The story says that when Charles discovered that his wife had committed adultery with Lord Wharton, he punished her by locking her in her rooms in the family home, which is, you guessed it, Raynham Hall. She remained there until her death in 1726 from smallpox. The first recorded claim of a sighting of the ghost was by Lucia C. Stone during a gathering at Christmas of 1835 when she observed the Brown Lady because of the dated dress she wore. The following evening, another guest claimed to have seen the brown lady again, later reporting that on this occasion he was drawn to the specter's empty eye sockets, which were dark in the glowing face. These sightings led to some staff permanently leaving Raynham Hall, and you know what? Valid. The next reported sighting was made in 1836 by Captain Frederick Marriott, a good friend of Charles Dickens and the author of a series of popular sea novels. It is said that Frederick specifically requested that he spend the night in the most haunted room of Raynham Hall to prove his theory that the haunting was caused by local smugglers to keep people away from the area, and not by an actual ghost. The first 2 nights he slept with a personal safety bang device under his pillow and encountered nothing. If you didn't get what I'm referring to, just ask someone in the comments. On the 3rd night, his final evening, 2 young men knocked at his door very late at night as he was undressing to go to bed and asked him to step over to their room at the other end of the corridor and give them his opinion on a collector's item that had just arrived. As they were leaving the room, he brought his personal safety device, joking that it was in case he met the brown lady. When the inspection of the item was over, the young men declared that they would accompany him back, joking yet again about the brown lady. And this is where I warn y'all, if you tempt fate, fate will deliver. The corridor was long and dark, since the lights had already been extinguished by that point in the night, but as the group reached the middle of the corridor, they saw the glimmer of a lamp coming towards them from the other end, and assumed it was from one of the women in the home visiting a nursery. For context, the bedroom doors in that corridor faced each other, and each room had a double door with a space between, as is the case in many old-fashioned homes. Frederick felt uncomfortable being undressed around women, so out of modesty, slept within one of the outer doors with the guys, in order to conceal himself until the lady should have passed by. As my roomie would say, what a distinguished gentleman. He watched her approaching nearer and nearer through the crack of the door until she was close enough for him to distinguish the colors and style of her outfit, and he recognized the figure as the brown lady. He had his finger on the trigger of his device and was about to demand that the ghost stop and give the reason for its presence there, when the figure halted of its own accord before the door, and while holding the lighted lamp she carried to her features, grinned in a malicious and diabolical manner at him. Ooh la la. This act infuriated Frederick, prompting him to leap into the corridor and discharge the device in her face. The figure instantly disappeared in the tiny, kaboom, passed through the outer door of the room on the opposite side of the corridor and lodged in the panel of the inner one. Frederick never attempted to interfere again, so I'll give him a common sense point for that. The brown lady was caught on camera on September 19th of 1936 when Captain Hubert C. Prevand, a London-based photographer working for Country Life magazine, and his assistant, Andre Shira, were taking photographs of Raynham Hall for an article. They claimed that they had already taken a photograph of the hall's main staircase and were setting up to take a second when Andre saw a vapory form slowly taking on the appearance of a woman moving down the stairs towards them. Captain Hubert quickly took the cap off the lens while Andre pressed the trigger to activate the camera's flash. Later, when the negative was developed, the now famous image of the brown lady was revealed. The ghostly experience and photograph of the brown lady was published in Country Life magazine on December 26th of 1936, January 4th, 1937 edition of Life magazine. In second place, we have a photo of John DeFeo. Now y'all know how much I love talking about Ed and Lorraine Warren's cases, so this should come as a shock to no one. If anyone needs a quick briefing on the Amityville Horror House and not the movie, here goes it. On November 13th of 1974, during the very early morning hours, Ronald DeFeo Jr. ended his entire family and claimed that the demonic voices told him to do it. I'm talking both parents and 4 siblings. Look, I can't say that I've never joked about ending family members when I'm frustrated, but this is a bit too extreme for my liking. Oh, and about a year after that slaughter, a new family moved into the home, but fled after just 28 days, claiming it was haunted beyond any way to live in it, describing slime oozing from the walls, windows that would suddenly shatter, instances of levitation, and more. I'd be here for like an hour if I went into full detail. The image I'd like to highlight today was captured by Gene Campbell, a professional photographer who was part of the team who worked with paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were called in by the Lutz family during the horrors they experienced while, still trying to live in the home. Gene had set up an automatic camera that took infrared pictures to capture the second floor landing during the night. It features what appears to be a young boy with white eyes, believed to be John, who is peeking out of a doorway. George Lutz revealed the Amityville ghost boy photo. George Lutz revealed this photo on the Merv Griffin show back in 1979, 3 years after it was taken. In first place, we have Mary Lee of Waverly Hills Sanatorium. In the early 1900s, the warm, wet weather of Kentucky was the perfect breeding ground for tuberculosis, pushing all of the local hospitals' capacities way past their breaking point. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium first opened its doors on July 26 of 1910 as a two-story wooden structure built to house about 50 patients, but in October of 1926, the hospital had expanded to a 400-bed capacity to accommodate a continual influx of patients as a now 5-story facility. The sanatorium first opened in the midst of a widespread epidemic, and we all know how epidemics and pandemics go, right? Because of the highly contagious nature of the disease, extreme quarantine measures were required for patients and staff alike, meaning Waverly Hills had to function as an isolated island. The self-sufficient facility produced its own food, raised animals, and ran a functioning post office. Also featured a 500-foot-long tunnel that traveled from the first floor of the building to the bottom of the hill. Supplies could be brought in from the bottom, and the countless bodies of deceased patients were discreetly removed from the top. With the eventual introduction of a vaccine, case numbers plummeted, and in 1961 the sanatorium was officially closed, but the pain and suffering of so many souls has left a permanent mark upon the site. And that's where we come in. The photo in question was taken on September 10th of 2006 by Tom Halstead during an overnight investigation of the facility by Missouri Paranormal Research on the 4th floor of the main hospital building at around 7 a.m. If you'd like me to be technical about it, the camera used was a Pentax K1000 35mm film camera with a ProMaster 56000 extendable flash. Black and white 400 ISO film was used, and according to data provided, the camera settings were at about 1/60th of a second speed with an f-stop of 5.6. As one can see, on the right of the frame there appears to be the apparition of a young woman with dark hair and a white nightgown or dress. With the death toll from the institution being well into the thousands, one could worry that she would never be identified. But we do have a lead. She is believed to be a young girl named Mary Lee, based on a photograph that was found of a similar looking girl signed "Love Mary Lee" on the back. One source claims that she is the legendary nurse who allegedly went the way of the rope necklace in room 502 after learning she was pregnant by a doctor and had tuberculosis. If you visit the sanatorium today for one of their ghost walks, you'll be sure to encounter her amongst the spooky residents that never left.
Number 5, Brazil. Coming up first on our list of ghost footage that's been freaking out the pros and spooking the amateurs alike is this bizarre clip captured and uploaded to the internet by one Mr. Miracle BR. Thank you, Mr. Miracle. Mr. Miracle shared this, and we're glad they did, even if it does have us questioning the nature of our reality ever so slightly. The footage appears to be a body camera footage of a police raid in Brazil, where a group of plainclothed officers are ready to kick down doors to deal with whatever's hiding inside. Of course, they might just be the wrong emergency department to call, as it seems like the Ghostbusters might have been a lot more appropriate. Take a look now. When they kick in that door, either they used a little bit too much force, or there's something in there they're not going to be able to put handcuffs on. The door keeps banging, swinging rapidly and violently back and forth in place. Whatever's going on with this one door seems to be present on all the doors in this warehouse, as every door they pass through starts swinging violently as if it's got a mind of their own, leading to the men getting understandably jumpy. You know, the academy doesn't teach you how to deal with ghosts. They start looking over their shoulders over and over, and the video cuts pretty short when the men start to dart down the hall, running away in a flurry. Running away from what, I wonder? Now this clip alone is already pretty unsettling. Imagine even with you and your squad, well trained, heavily armed, I still think seeing something you can't explain would have me on edge in a building that already looks pretty creepy. The creepiest part though is apparently this happens to cops more than we know. When the clip was posted, someone on Reddit responded with their own experience in the service, and they wrote, "I've cleared some creepy buildings as a cop. The most unrealistic thing about this video is that they kept going. I remember clearing this abandoned plantation house that still had an alarm hooked up with my partner. As we cleared each room, we left the doors open so we knew we were cleared. Turned around after the last door and all the doors were shut. Noped on out of there. Makes a lot of sense. I would probably do the same." And if you're looking for way more videos about ghosts, goblins, ghouls, and basically everything freaky above the sun and below it, Top 5 Scary is the place to be. Hit that subscribe button, please tickle that little bell if you wouldn't mind. But do that after this video because we got way more ghost sightings coming up for you right now.
Coming in at number 4, back in the late 1930s, on an especially dark evening, a nun was driving a school bus filled with children home after a field trip. They were heading down Shane Road, but when approaching the railroad crossing, the bus abruptly stalled out on the tracks. Most of the students were sleeping, so the nun was quietly attempting to start the engine back up when a train emerged, seemingly out of nowhere, as its headlamp was burned out. Something that hopefully wouldn't happen anymore. It was too late to evacuate the children as the train was moving way too fast. The nun, desperately and frantically, turned the key, making one last attempt to restart the bus, just as the train smashed through the bus, cutting it in half. The nun was thrown through the windshield, but miraculously survived. The rest of the folks on the bus weren't as fortunate and passed from the event. A few weeks later, the nun, guilt-ridden and heartbroken, returned to the site of the accident, filled with guilt and wanted to end her life. She parked her car on the tracks and sat there, waiting for the next train to come along. Later, when a train came into sight, speeding down towards her, in the same way as that tragic night, the nun began to hear some familiar voices. Then, her car began to move forward as if it was being pushed from behind, rolling to safety just as the train passed by. In disbelief, the nun got out of her car and began looking around, expecting to find some sort of good Samaritan, but didn't see a single person. She looked back at her car and noticed child-sized handprints on the back of her trunk and realized that the ghosts of her students had saved her life. The nun was then blessed with a new purpose in life, and she opened a school for orphans, teaching there for the rest of her days. It is said that to this day, if anyone parks their car on or near the railroad tracks at Shane Road, ghostly children will push the vehicle to safety, as they are determined to make sure that no one meets the same gruesome fate that they suffered. Many locals have made claims that say that you can hear the rumbling sounds of a train nearing, the steam whistle howling, and the screeching of wheels as if the train is grinding to a halt, but nothing is there at all, except for the haunting chill of the night. One of the children from this accident is more, shall I say, social than the others, and sometimes tries to find her way home. Not long after these initial incidents, a woman was driving down Shane Road late one night, and as she approached the railroad crossing, she saw a little girl standing all alone on the side of the road, holding a teddy bear. Now this woman immediately stopped, pulled over, and offered the girl a ride home. Once they arrived at the girl's house, the child was hesitant to leave the vehicle and to head inside. The woman assumed that the girl must have run away from home after a fight with her parents and offered to head to the house first to reassure the family. When the woman got out of the car, she looked back to give the child a reassuring smile, but the girl had completely vanished. She quickly reopened her car door, but no one was there. However, the seatbelt was still fastened. The photo evidence we have from this tale shows the little girl waiting by the tracks, just wanting to get home.
Our next weird clip for you is going to be this footage that was uploaded to the Ghosts subreddit. It's got investigators talking and viewers pausing to try and understand just what's going on. And a shout out to the Ghosts subreddit. Thanks for doing most of the heavy lifting on my job. Now you might think that ghosts and spirits only come out to play at night, but when the weather's nice, even the ghosts and ghouls and all things malevolent come out to soak up some rays. Let's give that clip a quick watch. Did you see it? Kinda hard not to. The white specter rushing by the side of the house. The user posted this with the caption, "Coworker caught this outside of his house and we're speechless," and it's easy to see why. What is it that's been caught on camera sprinting by that house? Now there's definitely something mysterious here. I get the same vibe off this mysterious entity that I do like the Fresno night crawlers, to shout out one of my favorite cryptids and unknown paranormal mysteries. I can't explain what's happening, and I know there's probably a reasonable scientific explanation, but I'm not finding it right now. Now, not everyone is as convinced as me. I'm very easily swayed. Some commenters had suggested that perhaps this could be a small animal like a monkey running by really fast, or a parrot flying by really, really fast. You'll have to let us know down below in the comments whether or not you think this was proof of a spectral entity caught on security, or if this is just a funny little creature monkeying around. For what it's worth, and I think we should take this seriously, I think a monkey could be a ghost. As far as I know, monkeys can become ghosts. I've never seen someone disprove this. I've never seen someone prove this either, but this might be that proof we need.
In second place, we have Johnny Johnson. While Toys R Us may no longer exist as a physical store in the United States, I think, I'd like to travel back to the 70s when it did. Located in Sunnyvale, California. No, not Sunnydale. No Hellmouth here, I don't think. Toys R Us decided to build a store over the property of a former ranch. Honestly, pretty normal sounding so far, right? Staff and customers alike began to report multiple incidents of what they believed to be a haunting, ranging from hearing their names whispered to them, or feeling cold breezes, and seeing objects moving around on their own. The woman's bathroom, in particular, seemed especially spooky because the sink's faucet taps would turn on by themselves. Oh, and some female employees said they experienced what felt like some invisible being playing with their hair, which, In 1978, psychic Sylvia Brown held a seance there for the first time, determined to identify the entity. The ghost haunting the store allegedly revealed himself as Johnson. Johnson's ghost told Brown that he was a preacher and a ranch hand in the 1880s on what was then the Murphy family farm. He spoke with a mild Swedish accent, and his first name was either John, Jan, or Johan. 10 out of the 16 people assembled there for the seance said they heard a high buzzing noise when Sylvia was supposedly listening to the ghost. The ghost told her that he had been in love with Murphy's daughter Elizabeth, who ran off with an East Coast lawyer. Old news clippings say that Johnson accidentally hacked his leg with an axe while carelessly chopping down trees and met his end from the injuries. Sylvia repeatedly went back to the Toys R Us to communicate with Johnny, who she called the most stubborn, ornery, argumentative ghost she'd ever met in her book, stating that she had tried many times to explain to him that his lifetime as Johnny Johnson had ended. Apparently, Johnny got so frustrated about being told that he had passed that he gave her the ultimatum that if she ever brought it up again, he would go silent. Sylvia let the matter drop since she and the ghost supposedly had a quasi-friendship where they would chat about the annoying and noisy kids who frequented the store. A 2007 piece on Snopes, which if you're unaware of, is a pretty legitimate fact-checking site, featured a woman named O'Brien who had worked at the store for over 18 years stocking shelves, claiming that she didn't believe in ghosts, but when you feel a breeze behind you or someone calls your name and there's nobody there, funny things happen that she just couldn't rationally explain. The report talked about dolls and toy trucks leaping off the shelves, balls bouncing down the aisles, and children's books falling off the racks. Baby swings would move on their own. The folks at Toys R Us say they've tried to explain it logically, but they've got nothing. Johnny was captured on camera in 1978, casually leaning against the shelves while the group that was there for the seance is shown sitting. Now that the store is no longer a Toys R Us, it has housed a Spirit Halloween, which feels fitting for some weird reason.
Number 1, the Arizona truck ghost. You ask any man of the road, ask them if they've ever seen anything strange up there, and they'll tell you everything. And this next clip is just more fuel for that fire. William Church is a truck driver who was driving down Arizona State Route 87 on March 11th, and he saw something he couldn't explain. And this time, it wasn't just the heebie-jeebies from one too many coffees and a Slim Jim for breakfast. He spotted something spectral on the road that was recorded by his dash cam, and he thinks this translucent figure was something not of this world. You can see the lines through the legs making a figure, Church told Fox News. Now there are some locals who believe that the highway itself is haunted. It was first built in 1927 and stretching across approximately 273 miles, there's a good bit of tragic history on Route 87. It's been described as one of Arizona's most treacherous roads, and as such, countless fatal car accidents have occurred on this particular stretch of land. Could it be that because of this, there's spirits still trapped on the long, lonely road, wandering around looking for a home they'll never be able to return to? After Church's video was uploaded and went a bit viral, viewers reported that they'd seen a lot of supernatural activity around Arizona's highways. If I'm ever traveling through Arizona, I think I will take a boat. Perhaps. One of Arizona's many plentiful boats for its vast and teeming rivers and lakes. That's what everybody knows about Arizona. It's a really wet state, right? Really wet state. Number 5, James May Pompey. James May Pompey. James May Pompey. I'm going to be saying that for the rest of the day. James May is a renowned British television host, notable for decades of service to the BBC, zipping cars around exotic places. After Top Gear quietly came to a mutual end that all parties agreed on in 2015, May continued globe-trotting, with less companions and less motoring, in a new show called James May, Our Man In. Well, when our man went to Rome to see Pompeii, it seems he accidentally caught a specter on tape in the old city of Pompeii. You watch this clip and tell me what you think, because I think this one is all kinds of freaky and might be one of the better ghost clips I've seen in a minute. That's why we're starting with it. As May is talking, a lone figure can be seen crossing the otherwise empty street before seemingly evaporating before your very own eyes. It's eerie, I ain't gonna lie. An unsettling coincidence is that the ghost seemingly appears as May is talking to the audience, reminding us that even though Pompeii has found life as a tourist destination, it's still one of history's biggest mass graves. Now I like to play skeptic a little bit, like you know I'm more Scully than I am Mulder. This ghost footage is pretty striking, but we can't cross out the possibility that this could just be something as boring as a camera glitching out or someone trying to scrub out a pedestrian in the background of an otherwise clean shot, although if that's the case, why so much of the figure left behind? Could this be a former citizen of Pompeii, still trapped through the daily loop of her everyday life after the volcano claimed it and changed their lives forever? Or could this ghost be the ghost of Jeremy Clarkson's career, hanging around James May? That one's too mean. Too far. Anyway, we may never know. Let me know down below in the comments what you think of this one. And if you're looking for way more ghost videos, you already know I'm about to tell you top 5 scary is where to be. And if ghosts aren't your jam, we have got just about everything freaky under the sun and above the sun you could possibly imagine. Cryptids, conspiracies, aliens, true crime, fake crime, baby, we got it. If it's spooky, we've done a video or 3 on it. So hit subscribe, hit the bell, and don't miss a single second. But do it after the end of this video, okay? We got way more ghosts coming up for you. Number 4, the insane asylum ghost. This next clip is one that is going to have the hairs on the back of your neck standing on end. This was originally posted to the Ghosts subreddit. A user by the lovely name of Random Doge 47 posted that she'd recently visited the Heartwood Insane Asylum, just as a visitor. Don't want to make that clear, not a patient. It's an abandoned mental facility in the UK that's long been thought to be the home of malicious spirits and poltergeists of former patients who never managed to find peace and drift off towards the afterlife. Definitely given bad vibes looking at pictures of this. Pictures of abandoned hospitals give me the creeps. Something bad. You can just tell nothing good has ever happened here, and nothing good will continue to happen here. Take a look at this footage. In the clip, we see someone or something in the top window seemingly noticing that they're being recorded and then hurriedly shutting the window to sneak off into the night. Now that's pretty darn creepy, but you could be thinking, wow, what if it's just the Redditor's friend or something and they schemed this hoax by preparing somebody. They had somebody climb up in there. Well, the place is locked up and the interiors are dilapidated in a state of serious disarray, and it's all collapsed in on itself and couldn't really support anyone up on the top floors. The windows are locked and the Redditor said there was no easy way for someone to get in. So what is happening here? Is this the ghost of a former patient? Someone who managed to sneak inside and is squatting inside an abandoned insane asylum? 3 raccoons in a trench coat pretending to be human and hiding out in an abandoned asylum where they live and go on little adventures? It could be, and that's what scares me. But you let me know what you think this could be, okay? Number 3, security footage. Now we got ourselves another clip from the Ghost subreddit. What can I say? If you want to look at ghosts, it's a pretty good place to go. They're all right there. This one was posted to us from user Ryman8 with the caption, "Something set off the security footage on one of our properties. Nothing was stolen, this is the footage." Now you take a look for yourself at the spine-tingling footage. This is one of those ones I had to watch twice, so don't feel bad if you gotta scoot back 30 seconds to watch it again. Let's roll it. At first, it might just seem like a frame at a skinamarink. I had to really press my nose up to the monitor to see what was going on here. But you can see the faintest silhouette of a figure creeping through in the background, seemingly walking through thin air, barely able to make it out. And then when you see it, you're probably never gonna sleep again as you see that ethereal little shape moving through the room. Now, the poster claims that the front door to the property was open, and that is what triggered the alarm and triggered the security footage. Who could have done that if not for this malevolent spirit? One commenter suggested that it was possible that the energy dispelled by the ghost could have been what set off the alarm and opened the door, and that's why it looks so spectral and ethereal on the footage. What do you all think out there, my internet comment hive mind? Is this some real proof of something from another world walking into ours? Or is this just some dust and light hitting the camera at just the right angle and our eyes filling in the details we wish we were seeing? Please do let us know down below. Doing some digging on this one, the Redditor returned to the same thread a year later and reported that nothing else like this had ever happened, and that he'd researched evidence of any spirits in the local area or on this property and couldn't find anything. So this could just be a one-off incident, or it could be something much more sinister. It could be. I can say whatever I want when I'm talking into a camera. I could say that all of these are aliens if I wanted to. I'm in control here. Number 2, the Ghost Palette. Coming up next on this list, we have got some more weird security footage to tickle your viewing pleasure. There's no ethereal figures walking around in this one, but it is pretty spooky nonetheless. This footage was posted by someone who used to work in a meat packing plant, but presumably left when they saw this security camera footage and found out the joint was haunted. In the video, we can see a pallet jack on the CCTV freaking out. boat seemingly being pulled or moving itself around the warehouse. I've gotta say, haunting aside, the atmosphere of this particular meatpacking plant already seems scary. You know, it's flickering lights, cold looking floors. I'm pretty sure this is the meat plant where Jigsaw was playing his funny little games. Back to the topic at hand. What is going on with that pallet jack? There's no reason for it to be moving. There's no wind or anything to push it, and it looks like someone is manually moving it around, if not a little awkwardly. Could it be a ghost who got itself hired? Or is it the ghost of an employee of the meat plant who's still stuck working here? I gotta wonder if ghosts have rights or like a ghostly union, because it does seem like the ghost is the only one on shift right now, and that can't be safe. Where's his ghostly supervisor? Is he making sure he's taking his 30? Now, some commenters with more experience in warehouse settings have suggested that the pallet jack malfunctioning like that could be faulty wiring, a loose axle, or something that could be causing it. There could be all manner of reasonable explanations, or it could be something supernatural sneaking into our world. So what do you think, my comment gang? Is this just a pallet jack on the fritz, or is this a ghost caught on camera? And finally, number 1, mystery orbs. Our last clip today comes to us from the subreddit High Strangeness, which I cannot recommend enough if you like paranormal and bizarre, inexplicable content on the internet, and I kind of suspect you do because you're watching this video, aren't you? But don't spend too much time there. Remember to come on back to Top 5 Scary. Posted to us by user Swingset Superman, this ring light footage has been puzzling viewers as they try to figure out what's going on and what was caught on camera. You take a look for yourself and you see if you got any luck putting this together. There appears to be a series of super bright lights floating outside around the front door. Now that might not be that odd, but it's the way they move I can't stop focusing on. They just don't seem like they're from this world, you know? They float around as if all the dots are connected in some way, moving in coordination. At first I thought they might be bugs, fireflies, or something, but I ain't never seen no bug move together like that. If anything, I think we can qualify these strange dots as a UAP, an unidentified aerial presence. That's what I see at first. It seems like a fleet of little minuscule UFOs, although maybe I have just made one too many UFO videos recently, and I think anything strange in the sky, regardless of height, are UFOs. Now, one commenter suggested these could be fairies or pixies of some sort, which would be interesting. I don't think we really talk much about fairies or sprites on the channel much at all. We always talk about scary supernatural things. Makes sense, we're Top 5 Scary, but I would love to talk about a fairy sometime. So I send it off to you, internet commenters. Take a look at the clip, look up the original source if you'd like, and you let me know what you think was captured by the camera that day. Maybe it was just a ghost dropping off a ghostly Uber Eats order. Number 5, La Llorona. Have you ever heard the legend of La Llorona? If you're a Top 5 Scary fan, most likely, because I know for a fact I've mentioned it once or twice in a video before, it's a very commonly repeated old folktale, and it's shown up in countless movies and TV. It was just made into a movie that was connected to the Conjuring series. But if you missed out on all of that, the short version of the legend of La Llorona is a Spanish ghost who is said to have cast her own offspring into a river and drowned them in a manic fit. We've all had bad days. When she realized what she had done, she cast herself into the water as well, but was cursed to spend eternity searching for her young wherever a body of water is found, calling out into the night, known for a wail and a cry. It's why she's called La Llorona, the weeping woman. She appears all in white with long black hair and is recognized for her cry and appearance. Take a little sip. You entertain yourself back there for a minute. Now think about all of that while we watch this next clip, posted to Reddit titled, "My Mom is in Mexico Right Now." And tell me if this doesn't make you think of La Llorona just a little bit, or like a lot bit. While walking late at night, a traveler comes across a strange white figure that seems clad in a long robe or a dress, moving in a way that makes them seem like they're not of this world. This white dress shining through the otherwise dark night. So what do you think, my faithful YouTube commenter audience? Is this proof of a ghost caught on camera? Proof of an old legend walking among us? Or is someone just putting the effort into a really complicated hoax? And if you're looking for more videos that might be hoaxes or might not be, Top 5 Scary has all of that and then some. We've got just about everything freaky you could possibly do a top 5 list on. Conspiracies, aliens, cryptids, true crime, fake crime, ghosts, and another scary thing. We've got it. So hit that subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell, but please, would you kindly do that at the end of this video, because I got some more scary ghosts coming right up for you. Number 4, Oxford Castle. Stuart James is an amateur paranormal investigator and a spiritual enthusiast who's posted a few of his findings of strange happenings to the internet. Now, a lot of the things he posted could find their way onto this list, but it was this video of him exploring Oxford Castle and prison that had my hands turning cold and clammy. More so than usual, I mean. Once standing as a medieval castle, the castle was mostly destroyed in the English Civil War. By the 18th century, was rebuilt to serve as Oxford's local prison. Now, a new prison was built on the site from 1785 and remained in operation all the way until 1996. With a few hundred years of visitors passing through its cold stone walls and spending their last days behind bars, is it much of a surprise that it's said to be haunted by the ghosts of some of the long-term residents who just can't seem to break free of prison life? As such, it's a popular spot for fledgling ghost hunters to go looking. The prison actually even offers ghost hunting packages and overnight adventures if you're looking for that sort of thing, but why don't you watch the clip first before you make any decisions? Did you see it? While looking through the glass window pane through a door, a face can be seen clear as day. James said as soon as he saw the face in the window, he and the rest of his team ran to the hills out of the prison, fearing what they had encountered and preferring to look the footage over later in the safety than spend another minute there. What do you think? Because I think I would do pretty much the exact same thing. I mean, I'm watching this video from the comfort of my office in a cozy little recording studio, and it was still enough to put my hair on end. I can't imagine that happening to you in front of your face and being able to keep a straight face, let alone dry jeans, and you're cool. I'd probably be on the first train out of Oxford and the rest of my days salt circling just in case. Number 3, the trampoline. Have you ever seen The Ring? Probably not, because if you saw the movie The Ring, you would have died roughly 7 days after that, and you wouldn't be able to watch all these lovely videos. I'm just kidding, of course. It's not haunted. Or is it? Now, the original Japanese Ring is one of my favorite horror movies, and I can't think of many things I've seen in my life half as truly creepy as Sadako stretching herself out of the TV into the real world. That scary long black hair covering her face, just the way she moves. Yeah, every time. Well, if I thought that was bad, this next thing might actually do me in and put me in the grave. Take a look at this next clip. At first, it seems like someone just filming some summer fun, until you get a better look at what appears to be a figure clad all in white crawling out from under the trampoline. Looking, honestly, a lot like Sadako crawling out of that TV. You see why I brought The Ring up? It definitely has me scratching my head watching over again. However, not everyone is as convinced as I am. I am pretty easily convinced. One commenter on the video attempted to debunk it as a fake, lending a bit of insight as a video editor. They said, I guess that the ghost figure is a clip of someone standing up, which has been motion tracked and composited in with blurring and opacity. If the shot was stabilized, like I'm guessing it was, this would be fairly straightforward and easy. The camera shake could be added in digitally after the motion tracking is done to really sell the shot. I noticed a blur on what looks like the ghost's back as it stands up, and the jumper leg passes over the figure. This blur is wiped away. This clip stops as the figure is moving above the black netting, which is being used to conceal any editing artifacts. Well, that's all well and reasonable, but it could also just be a ghost. That sounds like too much effort to me, personally. I mean, really, also, you gotta think of this. Who would go on the internet and just tell lies? What kind of person would go on the internet and then tell people that these supernatural things were happening if these things weren't really happening? What kind of person would do that just for clicks? Huh? Number 2, creepy puppet. I think we can all agree that, haunted or not, a puppet is terrifying. Nothing good has ever come from teaching a piece of wood to flap its lips. Just look at Jeff Dunham. Whether it's the uncanny valley that makes them so disturbing or simply a reasonable disdain for ventriloquism, puppets are scary. Think of that little freak from Saw, the Goosebumps dummy, or Annabelle. Well, the truth is always scarier than fiction, I find. And in this next clip, we've got ourselves a true haunted puppet. Take a look at this footage that has people's jaws hanging open. Watch the clip. Did you see it? It was kind of hard to miss. Looks like this dummy is keen to give a performance without any help from anybody and has learned to move its mouth on its own. Is something possessing it? Now, knowing its history actually makes things a little bit more interesting, because it seems like it could be likely. The doll is nicknamed Mr. Fritz, and it was recovered from a World War II prison camp where it is said to have been made by a prisoner. It eventually made its way into the hands of a private collector in the United Kingdom. This new owner, one Michael Diamond, claims that several times he noticed the glass display case on Mr. Fritz would open on itself during the night. Now, the reasonable thing to do would be to, burn his house down and make sure the doll burns up and release that evil away and, move countries. He instead set up a camera and filmed it for a few nights and caught this horrifying footage of the seemingly possessed dummy talking. His solution was to wrap it in chains and keep a blanket over it. I would send it to space or cast it into the ocean, but you do you. He's actually not too worried about it at all. Mr. Diamond says, "My wife and daughter both hate it, and I understand why, but I'm not intimidated by it. A braver man than me." Now, this could be faked, I'm sure, but I'm inclined to believe this is real. Haunted or not, I just do not trust this puppet even a little bit, Number 1, grandparents' ghost. That sounds sad. I like to save the best for last, and I think after you watch this clip, you might agree with me, as this is one of the weirder things on a list of all weird things. This was posted to the Ghost subreddit earlier in the month and was making the rounds on the paranormal and scarier sides of the internet, as even the biggest skeptics were wondering just what it was they were looking at. This redditor and their family had taken a day for a family vacation at a nearby water park, and when they had returned, there were several calls from the security company telling them that an alarm inside their grandparents' home had been tripped. When they returned home to watch the footage, they were stunned at what they had seen, and I invite you now to watch it too. As you could probably see, there's clearly something going on in that house that's a little more powerful than just the wind or a trick of the light. And hey, don't start telling me this is just an orb of dust floating by the camera lens, okay? There is something seriously wrong going on in here, and I think they need to dial an exorcist. The doors of the living room mysteriously shut by themselves, at the same time that the lamp on the table is flickering out like crazy. You keep watching the video, you also see a bowl moving by itself and a chair being dragged across the floor. All things that are like a checklist if you're going through to check if your house is being haunted. That's typical poltergeist behavior. Now, some people were a bit skeptical, suggesting this could very likely have been doctored or faked just to get some attention, but he did post a follow-up afterwards to provide just a little bit more context. He said that he did some digging into the history surrounding his house and the neighborhood. Found out that he lived in the town Napoleon grew up in. That's pretty cool. But more interestingly, he found that the house that his grandparents lived in used to be 2 houses that were converted into 1. And in the other one, there was a story of a man taking his life. Number 5, Barton Mansion, California. Coming up first today on our list of ghost videos that'll change your tune is an old classic, and to date, one of the best pieces of paranormal footage I've ever seen. I remember watching this one a while ago. It is a bit of an older clip, but it is an absolute classic. Maybe you could use a refresher. Maybe you've never seen it. 2 paranormal investigators were filming themselves investigating the Barton Mansion, a famous haunted house just outside of Los Angeles. In 1859, Dr. Benjamin Barton and his family purchased 640 acres of San Bernardino land for a reasonable sum of $500. That's probably the scariest part of this story. I literally do pay $1,200 for a basement. Bartman came to turn the property into a successful vineyard and winery, retiring from the practice of medicine entirely. Benjamin would then begin construction on a mansion, building it with clay that came directly from a nearby gravesite. Bad move. Almost immediately after the construction of the house, Barton's wife collapsed and succumbed to illness. Barton would become a recluse and shut himself inside the manor, with rumors spiraling outwards of Barton becoming engrossed with magic and satanic practices to try and revive his wife. Rumors would be told of loud noises and red lights piercing through the windows of the mansion. These days, nearby residents have reported seeing hooded figures entering and leaving, as well as finding discarded animal bodies near the property, insinuating that absolutely nothing good is happening in there. The Barton Mansion would become far more famous when a pair of paranormal investigators went into the long abandoned mansion to try and uncover some of the legends. In this clip, as they're exploring on the staircase, they turn and see the apparition of a tall, terrifyingly pale demonic creature. A ghost? Barton's late wife, Barton himself? Not looking to find out, the investigators double time it out of there. The genuine fear from the investigators' voices makes it seem really real. Like I said, to date, one of the best paranormal videos on the internet. But it's only number 5, so you could imagine I got 4 great ones coming up for you. But before we dive right on into that, I'd like to ask, if you enjoy the channel, you like what we do here, why not toss us a subscribe, hit that little bell so you don't miss a single scream. We've got scary videos on just about anything you can think of. If you can think it up, odds are good we've done 2 to 3 on it. We got videos on everything freaky under the sun and above it. But do that at the end of this video, okay? Because I got 4 more stories coming up for you right now. Number 4, Ghost Girl. Coming up next, another true vintage. I'm like a sommelier for ghost videos. This video uploaded to YouTube titled Ghost Girl. Straight, plain and simple. In it, we get a first-person view of a paranormal investigator wandering through a house. The atmosphere is thick, and there's a sense of dread in the air, even without being there yourself. Just seeing the video is enough to make your hair stand up. As the camera creeps upward, the investigator slowly moves forward down the hallway, peering through a crack in the door at what looks to be the shape of a young girl sitting in the hallway. That's my least favorite thing for a ghost to be. I don't know why, that's just the scariest one. The ring, yeah, I don't know. The shadows seem humanoid, and maybe it's just your brain filling in the details, but it definitely looks like there's a person in front of whoever's filming. If you listen carefully, it sounds too like you can make out the sounds of weeping or crying, a sad ghost. The video pushes forward for its horrifying conclusion when you see the door open again and you're treated to an up close and personal view of what is unmistakably a small ghost standing up. Definitely Sadako vibes. Now, it's a fairly old video, so I was hoping I could dig up a bit of context around it and see if I could get some backstory and get to the bottom of this clip. But clicking through on the channel that it uploaded, all we could really find was a few videos of a pretty cute little cat and little else in the way of paranormal content, or really ever any explanation at all. So was this a real ghost caught on camera and it's never been topped, or was this just a hoax to drum up some attention back on the early days of YouTube when things were nice and good? On a side note, does anyone else out there really miss that sort of sweet spot of when YouTube first started out and ghost videos were mostly like this? Some blurry footage of someone walking around a house that you and your dad would talk about whether it was real or a hoax or not for weeks. Maybe I'm just waxing nostalgic entirely lately, but I miss the really blurry low-res era of ghost videos. Number 3, The Fallen Angel. Up next on our collection of captivatingly horrifying clips that'll make true believers out of the most determined skeptics is this clip uploaded to YouTube called Fallen Angel of Catalonia. Certainly a bold name and also a pretty good name for like a deathcore band if you're looking for one. Near the village of Campdevenol, that's not at all how you say that. Near the village of Campdevenol, I think, a group of paranormal investigators are pursuing a lead. Hearing that there was sightings of something bizarre in the nearby area, they go bringing a camera, hoping to document the truth of what they find, not knowing the danger they would soon find themselves in. During the video, you can make out what looks to be discarded white feathers floating around in the breeze around where they saw the creature, leading to the belief that it was a fallen angel. Now, in the video, the investigators are speaking Spanish, but luckily, Spanish, what with being a language that a lot of people speak, we can translate pretty easily. They're talking sarcastically about how this is such an incredible experience and asking if you see the feathers that are floating all around. The pair of investigators, though, they then come across something lurched over, lurking in the dark. A pale, sickly looking skeletal creature. Seems like the skin is hanging off of rotten bones with piercingly white, ethereal glowing eyes, screeching. It's the kind of monster that would not look out of place in the hollowed halls of the SCP Foundation. Screeching, it sends the investigators fleeing away. Now, was this a real clip or was this filmed intentionally? I don't want to burst your bubble too much, but if you do a bit of digging on this, you can pretty easily find a making of the Fallen Angels of Catalonia video, and I will say that not a lot of true paranormal experiences have a documentary explaining how they filmed their process. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that one was for fun. Did you have fun? I had fun. Number 2, Bionicles. I feel like if you're a certain age, I can say the word Bionicle, and it'll inspire a sense of ferocious passion in your heart. We all love Bionicle, and for good reason. It was probably the coolest toy line maybe ever. I was obsessed with them as a young scrapper, as my parents can probably attest by the 3,000 little pieces that are living in their house somewhere. Biomechanical robots with lore based on Maori culture. Oh, the boys at LEGO were cooking with that. I'm not gonna act like I didn't cry when Takua put on the Mask of Light. I'm a big enough man to admit that. Alright, all of this aside, all this waxing poetic about Bionicle, all of those guys are apart somewhere, which might be a good thing, because if this video is any indication, spirits seem to be able to latch onto a Bionicle. Check out this wild footage of a haunted Bionicle moving its head. Look real close, it's pretty subtle. I had to watch it a few times because I wasn't getting it at first, but when you do, oh, It's gonna make you recoil. I got a little bit of context provided by the original uploader too. First of all, I've never believed in ghosts, and I don't consider my home creepy. I know the land doesn't have dark history or anything, but ever since we moved in, we've experienced some strange things. The weirdest thing is one that involves our old toys. One recurring thing we've heard tons of times is the sound of someone digging through Lego pieces upstairs. It's a very distinct noise. We started recording to try and get this noise, and that's when we all noticed that a large bionicle in the back of the closet turns its head towards us right as we're leaving. So what do you all think, my friends beyond the screen? Is this proof of a poltergeist with a bit of a nostalgic kick looking to save Maranui from darkness? Is the bionicle itself coming to life? I think we need more poltergeists out there who just want to like kick back and play with Lego instead of haunting you. I'm willing to bet more poltergeists are like that than you think. Just want to vibe out, have a little fun. And number 1, the basement. Coming up at our final spot today is this video uploaded to YouTube a few years back, which has been making the rounds around the paranormal sides of the internet recently, titled Real Life Paranormal Activity Caught on Camera. I love when the title promises something bold. We get treated to a picturesque first-person walking view of a beautiful mid-century modern home, let me just say, being walked around by someone maintaining the property. In the video description, he mentions that he thinks he's caught a squatter living in the home he's working on. And in a way, it seems like he's correct, just not the kind of squatter he was expecting. It's not a corporeal one. As he walks around the house, there's a sense of dread and you know nothing good is coming. But then he opens the basement door, starts calling out who's there, like he's in Luigi's mansion. No one answers him directly, but as he calls out in fear, we see the lights from down below in the basement start to flicker. And this is around where I would have noped out of there completely. Some force of nature from this world or another collides with the man recording the video, causing him to drop his phone and realistically dash on out of there, fleeing the scene, leaving behind the camera staring up at the ceiling as we're left wondering. I would super recommend watching this whole one. It's actually genuinely one of the scarier videos I've seen, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a scary YouTube host. It was actually downright freaky. When the recorder leaves and the camera's just left running, I actually felt like genuinely kind of lonely and scared. Like I was worried something was gonna happen if he didn't come back. I don't get that from most horror movies these days, let alone random ghost videos. So this one gets the Crypt Keeper's recommendation officially, and I watch thousands of ghost videos, so I like to think I'm a bit of a sommelier by now.
Kicking us off at number 5, The Rocking TV. Now, a pretty controversial YouTuber from a few years ago known as No Ghost Hunter, aka Ken Goldstein, went on to upload a series of strange occurrences at his home in northern Queensland, Australia. This involved paranormal occurrences, floating objects, and apparent apparitions caught on camera, which increasingly became more and more violent. Don't get me wrong, Ken caused a swathe of backlash in the paranormal community after defending himself against accusations of fakery, which in some cases seemed to be true. Since then, he's deleted his channel and most of his footage has disappeared along with him. But there is one video that still perplexes me to this very day. Take a look. Harmless enough, right? Just a TV that seems to rock violently back and forth on its own accord. That's until the footage continues and Ken clearly shows that there's nothing pulling the strings other than seemingly a malevolent spirit. Pretty creepy, eh? Next up at number 4, The Bedroom Poltergeist. This video surfaced back in 2016, allegedly from an unknown source involving an unidentified woman. Take this one with a pinch of salt, because although in some instances there are some frighteningly creepy occurrences, you can also pull apart the lack of exposition to back a case like this up. For one, why does she have a night vision camera conveniently placed in the corner of the room? That is, unless this isn't the first poltergeist occurrence and she was simply waiting to capture some footage. If we knew who this woman was and if she publicly backed up her claim, it'd be a lot easier, but alas, we're left in the unknown. Well, take a look for yourself. That ominous, prolonged creak of the door, the slide of the cover with malicious intent, and her seemingly frantic reaction for the remaining 2 minutes of the clip sounds like a poltergeist to me. Swinging in at number 3, The Crying Girl. Real or not, this video scares the bejesus out of me. There's something about ghosts or spirits with long dark hair that makes my hair stand on end. Well, what's left of it anyway. Throughout this 50-second clip uploaded by a YouTuber named Cluffo sometime in 2007, we're presented with a narrow, hazy shot of what is undeniably a human figure sulking and crying into the palm of its hands in the corner of a bedroom. Foolishly, or well, I don't know what I'd do in a similar situation, the guy closes the door and then after a short pause, he heads back to look. Let me know what you guys would do. And creeping in at our number 2 spot, broad daylight poltergeist. At frequent periods during 2008, a YouTuber named KShizzle27 was afflicted by a series of strange and unexplainable occurrences throughout their home. They'd often come back from work to find the attic door was mysteriously open, as well as items out of place, plates and glasses smashed on the floor. Of course, they decided to set up a camera to see what the hell was going on, and if you're asking me, it captured some pretty unbelievable footage. Now, I'm a big lover of cats and dogs, and I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that our furry friends are a little bit more, let's say, enlightened than us when it comes to sensing the intentions of the otherworldly, like in this clip. And finally, swooping in at our number 1 top spot, the Wingate Hotel, Illinois. Irregardless as to whether this footage is fake or not, it's pretty damn terrifying, and if it is fake, then it holds up as some incredibly well-made indie horror. It's the best of both worlds, really. Now, this is a long clip, so for argument's sake, you're going to have to watch the whole thing yourselves. We'll leave a link of all the footage in the info box below. In the way back when era of 2003, a night security manager was standing watch at an unspecified Wingate Hotel in Illinois when they received reports of a woman's blood-curdling scream coming from a hotel room.
It's room 209. Amy says nobody's checked into that room, and there's reports of screaming coming from that room. Amy, he's on his way down there right now.
If you learn anything from this video, know that the security guard, John, is a complete and utter stone cold badass. This man is as fearless as they come, and he manages to hold his nerve while standing outside the allegedly already haunted room.
There's no one checked into that room.
Well, as John enters, something leaves, and he finds the hotel room not as he intended. I won't spoil any of this for you because it's definitely worth the watch. We'll leave a link down below for you to enjoy.
Number 5, the spiritual stream. Coming up first on our list today is this footage that has been setting people's minds ablaze. Maybe it's one of the most compelling pieces of supernatural footage on the internet recently, and it's only number 5. So, you gotta imagine this is gonna be a good list, and I'm not being sensationalist in any way. Take a look at this. A group of friends and streamers had been watching a sports stream together, and after the stream had wrapped, they're getting into the post-commentary section of things, discussing their thoughts, theories, when things took a turn for the supernatural. Streamer Chris D noticed a dark shadow passing from the right side to the left side of his webcam before going out of frame. Not even half a second later, Chris turned around deeply aware that there was something that had passed behind him. Chris was terrified, asking if he'd just seen a ghost. Chris's up-close encounter made his friends into a believer. I mean, yeah, if I think there was a video of one of my friends having a ghost walk right behind him, I'd probably start believing too. The host of the podcast running the stream, J. Rob, claimed that he was always skeptical of the idea that the supernatural was real, but quoting, "After what I witnessed while streaming on my channel, it forever changed my belief." And this incident might actually have changed the friends far more than just believing, and might have given him a bit of spiritual guidance, if you'll pardon the pun, as they've changed their path from sports podcasting to supernatural huntings, as the boys are rebranding as the Ghost Brothers and are going to stream Chris's house directly to see if they can catch anything anything else on camera. We'll definitely see, and we'll be keeping an eye on them, and hopefully we'll see them again in another top 5 scary video. Top 5 even scarier poltergeist sightings. But if you can't wait for those guys to start getting some ghost content, we've already got some ghost videos right here. You don't gotta go anywhere. Click on through on top 5 scary and find something to like. Hit subscribe. Make sure you hit that little bell as well so you don't miss a scream. But you gotta do that at the end of this video for me, would you kindly? Because I got 4 more pieces of poltergeist footage coming up for you right about now. Number 4, no strings attached. I think most of us could probably agree that regardless of if a spirit or poltergeist is possessing a puppet or not, a puppet is terrifying. I just don't think any good can ever come from teaching a piece of wood to talk. Whether it's the uncanny valley that makes them so disturbing, a biological impulse to make us recognize that that's not a real person, or maybe just a general reasonable disdain for the practice of ventriloquism, puppets are scary, you know? The Goosebumps dummy, movie star Annabelle, that freaky little puppet freak from Saw who loves playing all those funny little games? Well, the truth is always scarier than fiction, I find, and in this next clip we've got a true haunted puppet on our case and sealed away in a case. Take a look at this footage that has people's jaws hanging open. Did you see it? It's kind of hard to miss. It looks like this dummy is keen to give a performance without any help from anybody and has learned to move its mouth on its own. Is something possessing it? Is there a malevolent spirit inside this puppet, or is it just going solo? Knowing its history makes things a lot more interesting. This doll is named Mr. Fritz, and it was recovered from a World War II prison camp and eventually would make its way into the hands of a private collector in the UK. The new owner, one Michael Diamond, claims that several times he noticed the glass display would open on its own during the night. Now, if I got a haunted doll from a World War II prison camp and the glass case that I was putting it in kept accidentally opening on its own, I would probably burn my house down, change countries, but he filmed it for a few nights and caught footage of the seemingly possessed dummy talking. His solution was to wrap it in chains and keep a blanket over it. Again, I would probably bury it, cast it into the ocean, I don't know, pour salt on it, burn it, but hey, you do you, and I'm glad you're doing it because we got footage of it. Mr. Diamond says he's not worried, saying, "My wife and daughter both hate it, and I understand why. I'm not intimidated by it." Now, this obviously could be fake, some special effects, some fishing wire, I'm sure, but I'm inclined to believe this one is real, and maybe that's just because I don't want to mess with this puppet at all. Number 3, TikTok's poltergeist pair. Coming up next on our list of poltergeist sightings caught on camera is this TikTok account, Lainey and Ben. You might have even come across them if you're particularly big on supernatural stuff on TikTok. They're a pair of teachers who've been viral for the haunted house they live in. Take a look at some of the footage captured from their account. Now, Lainey said she hadn't believed in spirits, but had hoped that she had, because after her mother's passing, she started to truly believe when she said her mother came to her in a dream and told her, "I'm here to tell you I'm okay and I'm happy." She would meet her partner Ben at Teachers College, and the two of them married quickly, buying a house in the summer of 2018. Not relatable at all. They moved into their house, and shortly after moving in, found odd noises keeping them up at night. Footsteps on stairs, creaky voices, until it started to ramp up, with them claiming that they were hearing voices calling out to them during the night, whispering their names. They claimed after this first incident with the voices, the hauntings would then become much more intense, objects shifting, being tossed across the room, coming into a room and seeing a chair stacked, cabinets flying open, drawers launched around. They say they had a friend house sitting for them while they were away, and within a few hours the friend had called to return the keys and said he was done. Allegedly, while sleeping, he felt the duvet get torn off of him and thrown across the room, and that it was just too much to deal with. Honestly, fair. I am the exact same way when I wake up, and that is regardless of if a ghost is touching me or not. Now, despite the fact that the two seem to be living in the Amityville horror house, the couple enjoy it and say they love their spirits and love being part of the paranormal community. Now, is that because these are benevolent, friendly spirits that are easy to get along with and have exposed the pair to a world they didn't know, or do the pair just enjoy the fame and success that comes from posting the clips to TikTok? But I mean, come on, could it be faked? Do you really think anyone would go on the internet and fake things about the supernatural for clicks and ad money? Do you think anyone would do that? Number 2, the Deer Park Demon. Coming up next is going to be this Irish school that has a little too much school spirit. Huh? Instead of a student body, they got a disembody? Do I have a third pun? No. On October 1st at around 3 a.m., the witching hour, surveillance cameras captured these spooky happenings at Deer Park Public in Cork, Ireland, weeks before Halloween. We see the lockers shake, the doors slam, and a sign flopping over, all without a string or person in sight. Now, some online had questioned whether or not the footage could have been doctored or edited in any way, or perhaps it was a hoax with a green screen, and that's certainly possible, but I think you should look up how much funding any public school receives, because they really don't have a lot of room in the budget for fake ghost videos. This footage was unsettling the staff, with the principal baffled at what had happened, wondering if the footage was somehow evidence of a very complicated senior prank. A prank perhaps, but one done by poltergeists, not students. Allegedly, this wasn't the first time something supernatural has been reported on in Deer Park either. The principal, one Aaron Wolf, said that staff in the past have complained about inexplicable happenings around the school, from minor things like the hallways being supernaturally cold to more extreme things like hearing the ghostly wail of a banshee through the halls late at night. Of course, that could just as easily be a student getting back their test results and discovering they are not making honor roll this year. The school was built on a site known as the Green Gallows, a 19th century execution ground for criminals. Is it possible that the lingering spirit of some of these former criminals are wandering the halls, just looking for a bit of post-mortuary education? I'm not sure, and I'm not looking to find out anytime soon. I graduated twice, not looking to go back to school a third time. Number 1, the Hillview Haunting. And finally, rounding out our list today of supernatural occurrences on camera is going to be this clip I've dubbed the Hillview Haunting, what with it occurring at the Hillview Manor in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. It's been a nursing home, but above all else and beyond, it's a haunted house. The spot is fairly well known locally for being a haunted destination for supernatural enthusiasts, even offering tickets for overnight stays for amateur ghost hunters to try and find the truth. And that's exactly what had happened to an anonymous Redditor who posted this shocking footage of her and her husband and the rest of the tour being charged at by some unknown force. And this footage is relentless, let me tell you. Now, the Redditor blessed us with a little backstory, saying she had bought the tickets for the tour with her husband for his birthday as a gift, and immediately said the two of them began to feel uncomfortable as they disembarked on the tour. Long, empty hallways in the dark, droning sounds, and ghost stories told from the tour guide all contributed to a sense of dread. Her husband had told her that the entire time they'd been walking through the manor, he had felt something grabbing onto his arm, as if it was like a spider web that had been rubbing against, and whenever he'd adjust, he'd find nothing there. Now, eventually the tour made its way to a hallway on the 3rd floor, and when they started to hear footsteps by the nurse's station that grew louder, heavier, they found the walls and floors shaking, and something sent her husband flying. The two of them ran to the office, shaking with pure fear. They looked over the surveillance footage to try and determine what had happened, but all they were left with was more questions and what was seemingly an invisible presence knocking them all over. Number 5, the South Shields Poltergeist. Coming up first on this list is going to be the story of the South Shields Poltergeist, a recent case of spiritual harassment. I love a contemporary ghost. We got too many ghosts from the Victorian era or like the 1800s. We don't get nearly enough modern 2000s hauntings. Anyway, in 2005, an anonymous couple living in England had begun reporting seeing strange things happening around the house. Their furniture would be dragged along the ground, which is odd, but stranger things have happened. Doors left open, again, bizarre. But it was when they'd come home and found the chairs stacked on top of each other, they began to suspect that something odd was happening. One evening, the couple was asleep, and the wife had been struck in the back of the head with a doll, one of her son's toys. When she sat upright, she found herself being pelted by an onslaught of toys thrown across the room, as if G.I. Joe himself was leading the offensive. Dolls and blocks thrown at them from the hallway. They tried to cover themselves up with the comforter, but found that whatever entity that had taken up residence in their home had other ideas, and they found themselves pulling back at this invisible force. This horrifying encounter would culminate in the husband waking up and discovering 13 clean red cuts all over his skin, and a burning, searing pain on his back. That same morning, the couple discovered a rocking horse that had been hung from the ceiling, a stuffed rabbit toy sitting at the top of the stairs with a box cutter left between its hands, unsettling things written on the walls. You know, stuff like go die or you're dead. Very clear cut. I gotta say, this poltergeist really has a flair for the dramatic, setting the scene like this. That's good environmental storytelling with that set dressing. Anyway, enough was enough, and after having lived through enough activity to fill the brunt of one of the bad Conjuring sequels, they contacted a paranormal investigator. These investigators claimed that they made contact with an evil entity that looked like a pure black void that radiated pure evil. Shortly after the investigation crew showed up, however, the haunting seemed to stop. Guess the ghosts got scared when somebody stepped to them. The couple has now gone on to live a normal, happy life, although they claim they have been traumatized by the events. I know I would probably never look at that stuffed rabbit the same way again. And my ghouls and goblins, if you're looking for more good content from us, well, hey, we've got loads and loads of that. We got ghosts, ghouls, aliens, government cover-ups, SCPs, and just about everything freaky under the sun. Let's keep going. Number 4, Kate Morgan. Our next entry is about the mystery of Kate Morgan, whose death has been a long unsolved mystery in American history. In 1888, the Hotel del Coronado opened in Coronado, California, just across from San Diego. It was as classy as a joint in the late 1880s could be, and upon its completion, it was the largest resort hotel in the world. Our story, though, doesn't start until 1892, when a young woman named Kate Morgan checked into the hotel, room 304. She had told the desk she was there to meet with her brother, who was a doctor who was treating her for stomach cancer. However, tragically, 5 days after first checking in, Miss Morgan was found dead on the steps of the hotel of what looked to be a self-inflicted gunshot. Now, it would later come out after her death that for whatever reason, the story she had told the staff was all untrue, with an investigation suggesting maybe Morgan had been a con artist. What we did know about her is that she'd been married to a postal worker from Nebraska named Tom Morgan, and that Kate was believed to be visiting San Diego to visit her brother, who was a gambler, not a doctor. But, you know, they probably pulled in similar amounts of money. Doctors didn't even think that Morgan's gunshot wound was self-inflicted, as the bullet retrieved from the autopsy hadn't come from a gun Kate had owned. However, the case was never opened. It was officially declared that she took her own life, and that was that. It would seem that Kate Morgan, much like us, is unable to move on from this case, as she's said to still inhabit the Del Coronado to this very day around her former room, which has now been renamed room 3327. Guests report hearing all sorts of bizarre sounds. Screaming, crying, wailing, laughing, all while staying in the room, reporting erratic and chaotic noises pretty much all hours of the night. Weirdly too, guests claim that while staying in 3327, the temperature of the room will change in bizarre ways, as if there'll be an intense, freezing cold front that lasts for a few short minutes and dissipates, or electronics malfunctioning. And this seems made up, but I did just get a cold, shock while reading through this, so she might be in the room with us recording right now, and if you are, Kate, hope you're doing well. So is Kate's ghost still checked into the hotel, doomed to wander the property until the crime can be solved? We may never know. Number 3, the Black Monk. Our next story is going to take us down to England yet again, this time in lovely Yorkshire. The scene was 1966. The Pritchard family lived quietly and under the radar, certainly expecting no trouble and definitely not expecting to be haunted. They just moved into their new house and were settling in when they started to notice some odd, troubling things, all the usual signs of a paranormal haunting. Strange scratches, strange noises at all hours of the night, furniture shifting around. Those sound like the telltale symptoms of a poltergeist to me. They assumed it might just have been something natural because they've never seen a movie in their life, I guess. The mind just never wants to assume it's ghosts. It was as they were approaching a year of living in that new estate that the Pritchards truly became aware of what they had inadvertently welcomed into their lives. It seemed as if whatever entity that was haunting the Pritchard house had a keen interest in the family's younger members, primarily the young student Diane. On one occasion, she claims she felt herself being dragged across the hallway by her neck, and she even showed welts and bruises all over her neck afterwards. A red handprint was burned around her throat. Foregoing subtlety at this point, this is when the entity started to make itself manifest to the family, apparating as a dark-robed, hovering being that would appear at the family's beds during the middle of the night. Very ominous. A paranormal investigation was then called and found to be inconclusive. As soon as the investigators came, the haunting seemed to slow down, similar to what had happened in the South Shields case. Ghosts are just cowards as soon as you tell on them, eh? It seemed the Pritchard family had found peace, but the investigator involved was still bothered and continued to research independently, and discovered that the Pritchard estate was built upon the former grounds of a medieval rectory, and across the street from an old gallows where people used to hang out. After a little digging, he learned that one of the prisoners sentenced to death there was an old monk. The investigator suggested this monk's malevolent spirit was the evil entity that they saw wrapped in black, dubbing him the Black Monk. And from here, the case became a legend, eventually being made into a movie called When the Lights Go Out. Number 2. Esther Cox. Coming up next is going to be the story of Esther Cox and the haunting of Amherst in Nova Scotia. It's a particularly famous Canadian ghost story, eh? It's sometimes referred to as the Great Amherst Mystery, and it's plagued and piqued the curiosity of paranormal enthusiasts for years the world over. In the late 1870s, Esther Cox was living at her sister's house alongside her brother-in-law and their children. At some point during 1878, Esther was attacked by a male friend who had tried to take advantage of her, leading to a rapid decline in Esther's mental health and emotional distress. And shortly thereafter, Esther's condition would be made infinitely worsened by the strange paranormal experiences that began to manifest on the Amherst property. The Cox family would report strange noises all throughout the night, and Esther's body began to swell as she alternated between impossibly high fevers and deathly low chills. And shortly after this was when objects around the house would be reported moving. Oh, that's it. That's the telltale sign of a poltergeist. A little aside, guys, if you ever see your table moving across your living room, call the Ghostbusters right away. The family doctor who was visiting the Cox household claims that he once saw the words, "Esther Cox, you are mine to kill," written on the wall by the head boy. He tried to sedate her, but discovered that it really didn't do much to stop supernatural doings. Stressed and out of options, Esther thought that moving houses might be enough to stop the curse. But sadly, whatever is haunting her had their hooks in deep, as the ghosts would follow Esther through every house she moved to. Evidently, the spirits found this greatly offensive, as one of the houses Esther would move to would burn down while she was staying at it, resulting in Esther's arrest for arson and eventual conviction. Esther pleaded that she was innocent, and even witnesses backed up this, saying that everything Esther had been claiming had occurred as she'd said. But the old "a ghost did it" is an argument that rarely holds up in court, and Esther spent a year inside a cell. She was released in 1879 and would find a husband and raise a few children, seemingly free from the curse that once sought out to destroy her life. And number 1. Honest Abe. Would you believe that one of the most famous and most reported ghosts in American history is none other than the great emancipator himself, Abraham Lincoln? Honestly, Honest Abe gets seen more than just about any other ghost. Since his assassination, there have been numerous sightings of undead Abe wandering through the halls of the White House. Eleanor Roosevelt, of the Beatles fame, kept her study in what was formerly Lincoln's bedroom, pretty much just asking to bump into a ghostly stovepipe hat if you move into his bedroom. Roosevelt claimed that over the years she lived there, she could feel his presence and would sometimes see apparitions of him out of the corner of her eye. And while her husband was president, a number of other sightings would occur. A young clerk claimed that he saw Lincoln's spitting image, clear as day, sitting on the foot of a bed polishing his boots. On a visit from the Netherlands, Queen Wilhelmina claims that when she was spending a night inside the White House, she was visited by Lincoln's ghost knocking on her door. Calvin Coolidge's wife claims to have seen her on more than one occasion as well. First ladies were really out there seeing Lincoln. Claims that she saw him with his arms clasped behind his back, lost in thought looking out into the Potomac River. Wise. Winston Churchill had said that during the Second World War, he felt like he could see Lincoln's ghost coming to when the country needed him the most, and he also shared the most direct encounter and probably the funniest one. Now, Churchill used to love to relax by taking a long hot bath while enjoying a cigar. On one occasion, he says he stepped out of the bath, took a cigar, and walked into his bedroom and saw a man standing in the bedroom already, giving him quite a shock. He said when he saw the man's face, he laughed and said, "Good evening, Mr. President. You have me at a disadvantage." He claims he saw Lincoln chuckle wryly, then disappear. Presidents Truman, Roosevelt, and Hoover have all claimed to have seen inexplicable things around the White House, claiming they were all signs of Lincoln. In the last few decades, however, reportings of sightings of old Abraham Lincoln have calmed significantly. Perhaps he's finally been able to move on, or perhaps he's just very slowly checking out the rest of Washington, D.C. There's a whole lot of tourist spots and monuments to work through, and maybe he just got really caught up on the White House tour. He's got all the time in the world now to check them all out.